if you're training for an ultra marathon, there is one thing that you have to do in your training block every single time you're training for a race, because the reason why we're training is we want to get better, right? We want to get faster. We want to get stronger. We want to get much more durable, meaning we want to make sure that we're feeling the pain later in an ultra marathon versus earlier, because the reason why we train is, like I said before, to get better. There's something that I see people do in their ultra marathon training that prevents them from getting better. In fact, this is something that was happening to me for a very, very long time before I started to realize training theory and how the body works and everything and such too. And as I'm here, coming into the final weeks of my Kodiak 100-mile prep, today is September 16th. The race is October 10th. So we are less than a month away from Kodiak 100-miler. So we got a couple more weeks of building, this one and the next week. I'm thinking about this principle too. And even though I've been ultra running for 8 years, this is a continuous principle that I always put into my training. It's what I put into all the athletes that I coach. It's all the athletes that we coach here at Everyday Ultra. And it is in the lens of looking at your training block and asking yourself one question: how can I make progress in this training block? Now, it's a very simple question, but the application goes a little bit deeper than that. And that is, in order to get better, you have to progress your training further to where you've been before. So I'll give you an example here, right? If let's say you're training for a 50 miler, right? You train for a 50 miler, you get it done, you get that first 50 miler under your belt, like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, that was great. And let's just say you're like, hey, I want to sign up next year for that same 50 miler just to get better and improve and go out there and get a PR on my time from the last course. Great, awesome. I'll give you an example about this too, actually. Like, maybe let's just take it into an example of my own story here too. Instead of doing a 50 miler, I did a 100 miler. And I remember in that 100 miler, I wanted to come back the next year and I wanted to get a PR. And so what I did was, when I went through that first 100 miler, it was the best race I'd ran at the time. And I nailed it. I executed it so well. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. And that was awesome. When I came to the second training block for this next 100 miler, right? I came back the next year and I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? That first training block went so well for that last 100. It went amazing. My training was awesome. I performed so well. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pretty much do the same exact training block going into that next year because it worked so well in the first year. And here's the reality. I went back that second year and I really did not get much better at all. In fact, I didn't even get a PR that time. Now, there was various other reasons for that, but I sat there and I thought, and I was like, what the heck? I did pretty much the same training block going into this next race and as I did the first one. And so why didn't I get better results, right? If I was faster and if I was, doing all these things and doing the same training block, like, why wasn't I getting better? And it's because I didn't progress from that one training block to the other. And so what do we actually mean by progression? There really is a few different ways you can look at progression. But in a nutshell, the most simple concept is you need to be doing more than what you did in the last training block. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean more miles, right? That's one lever to pull. So I don't want to necessarily say that you have to always keep stacking miles, because at a certain point, you can only hit so many miles before you run out of hours in the day, before you run out of recovery time. So there is a plateau from that. And that doesn't mean you're screwed, because a lot of elite athletes, right, they're maximizing volume, but there's other ways that you can progress too. So just know that progression isn't always volume, and it doesn't always have to be volume, especially if you're racing a certain type of race, which we'll kind of go through too. So there's a few levers of progression that you can go through on here when you're thinking about training for your next ultra marathon. So the first one, and the most obvious one, and we've already talked about that, is volume. If you are running, let's just go by hours and miles, right? There's two different types of ways you can program your training. But let's just say you're going by miles and you're running 50 miles a week at your peak weeks of your training block. The next time you go to race in that same distance or same race or whatever you might be training for, you can progress it by making your peak week 60 to 70 mile weeks, right? Or you can just make your overall training volume higher than what you did in the past. And that is a progression, because you are pushing your aerobic volume further. You're pushing your muscular durability, aka how much load is being put on your muscles, much more in that next training block, and you are making that progression onto there. So that's one way to do it. The second way is adding more intensity. So let's just say you did a training block where you just did a lot of low intensity volume, and then the next year you want to do a little bit more speed work. So you start adding in things like tempo workouts, speed workouts, strides, much more aerobic threshold work, things that you haven't done as much in the past, or you just do more speed than you did in the last training block. That's a way to progress it as well. So that's number two. A third way to progress is adding in vertical gain or downhills. So if you did a training block where you just did all flat, Now you do a training block where you're doing a lot more uphills and downhills. That is a way to progress your training as well too. And then the last thing is, being in a place where even you're progressing a little bit more on the actual technical skills. So if you just did a lot of road running, you can actually progress yourself by doing more trail running, because with doing more trail running, you're activating more muscles in your ankles and your legs, and your muscles are moving around a little bit more differently. Your kind of whole body's being a little bit more agile, whereas like the road, you're really more controlled. So you can add in much more of a progression by doing more trails as opposed to roads in there too. Now, two different things to kind of keep in mind here. The number one thing is the thing that you are progressing on, you want to make sure applies to the goals and the race that you are going on to. So let me give you an example. For Kodiak 100 miler, for me, my goal is to progress in terms of overall speed, because I just come off of training for a 300 mile and a 200 mile race. And the 100 mile race, as crazy as it sounds, is the shortest distance that I'm running this year in terms of major races. But because of that, I've done a lot of low intensity volume. So to progress myself, I'm going to be doing more speed than I've done in the past. And quite frankly, this is the most amount of speed that I've done for any 100 mile training block. And I do want to run this really, really fast. So the way that I'm progressing myself is the lever of intensity. I'm just doing around the similar amount of volume that I've done for 100 miles in the past, but now I'm doing it at a higher intensity. Because if you take 100 miles per week, which is on average of more so around 95 miles a week, where I'm kind of averaging out. If you take that same 95 miles and you add intensity in that 95 miles versus the 95 miles at low intensity, that 95 miles at the higher intensity is going to be much more harder on the body than 95 miles at a low intensity. So for me, I'm choosing speed. And so for you, if you're going for the furthest that you've ever gone in a race, the most obvious answer is going to be you're likely going to need to progress through volume because you're going further. If you're going at a shorter race and you've been training for longer races, you might want to increase speed. If you're doing something going from road racing to trail racing, then that becomes a little bit obvious. You're progressing through trail running. And then also too, if you're going from a flat race to a hilly race, you can progress a little bit more on vertical gain or decline, right? Or uphill or downhill, to put it even succinctly. Now, you can progress all these things at once, but the biggest thing to be careful with is that you don't want to increase these all at the same time, and you kind of want to manage your load and make one of the things the biggest priority. So like for me, I haven't been increasing my volume as crazy in this training block as I normally do. I shouldn't say crazy because that sounds irresponsible, but I haven't been doing it as much of a higher rate as I used to, because at this point, because I'm increasing intensity so much, I don't want to risk injury by also increasing volume at the same time. Because a lot of times when you get an injury, it's usually caused by an increase in one of those four things very abruptly. Now, the thing is, you can have controlled increases in any of those things, but if you increase them all at the same time, even gradually, you can cause some issues and overload your body and get injured. So if you are progressing something, make sure that you are doing it at a very, very easy clip and sustainable clip, and make sure that there's one that you're really focusing on and make that the true focus. You can increase the other stuff, but just make sure that they're not as much of a rapid increase as the others. So like for me, intensity is the name of the game of where I'm increasing the stuff. So volume hasn't been increasing as much. I have been increasing vertical gain for sure, but again, not as aggressive. And then trails, I've been training on trails all year, so that one kind of stays stable. So look at those four buckets and ask yourself to progress. And here's the most important thing before we get into this workout today, and I'll talk about why the workout fits into what we're talking about today. The biggest reason why you want to progress is this, is that if you give your body the same stimulus, it's going to adapt to that stimulus. So if you're running a certain amount of miles a week, let's just call it 75 miles a week, like at a low intensity, your body's going to adapt to be able to handle 75 miles at a low intensity, to the point where it's not going to make any adaptations, because it's like, oh, we've adapted our body so well to this training load, so therefore, like, we got this, like, we're here. And I always say with training, what comes with training is we are trying to stress the body out beyond its limits so that it can adapt to get stronger. That's what training is in a nutshell. So if we don't progress our training, if we don't stress our body out even more than where we're at, it's not going to get better, because we're not forcing it to adapt. And so we need to progress to make it adapt, to get better, to get stronger, so we can run faster, run stronger, and ultimately crush our ultramarathon goals. So that's why progression is important. So always ask yourself, is this training block progressing me in one of those areas that we talk about? And if the answer is yes, great, that's awesome. If the answer is no, then you might want to start to consider, okay, how can I add in more volume? How can I add in more intensity? How can I add in these things and do it so you can get better in your training block? So that brings us to today's workout. And how am I getting better on here too? Well, today's workout's a tempo workout. If you've been following along our 100-mile race series, we are in the lactate threshold focus here too, which is basically a fancy word for saying we are trying to get better at running for faster paces for longer periods of time by raising the point at which our body can handle lactate, which is created from running at higher speeds. We're delaying the part where our body shuts down because it has too much lactate, more than it can process. So we do that by running tempo workout. So today's workout is a spicy meatball one. It's a spicy meatball we're cooking up in Joe's kitchen here today. I don't know. That was crazy. That was nuts. I should have a mustache instead of this full scraggly ass beard here. But anyways, what's the workout today, Joe? Stop babbling around. So we got a nice 20-minute warm up, nothing to it, super easy warming up. And then we got 4 sets of 12 minutes at a 6 to 7 rate of perceived exertion or tempo intensity, with 6-minute recoveries in between, and then the remainder of cool down. Now, progression 4x12, I think that will be the highest time and intensity tempo workout I think I've ever done. I don't think I've ever done that high of a tempo workout before. And the way that you want to measure your overall progression in speed is at your time and intensity. So 4 times 12 minutes is 48. And again, that is the highest time and intensity I think I've ever done. More times with tempo workouts, like the max you really want to go up to is about 60 minutes or so. So that's even kind of getting close to that max here too. And I've been doing tempo workouts for years and years and years, and I haven't done one as spicy as this one. So we are progressing here today. We're living the values, we're living the truth, and we're going to go out and do it. So enough of me blabbing. I'm going to go suffer my face off on this workout, and you're going to watch me suffer my face off on this workout. So we're going to get it started and get it rocking and rolling. So I know we're on these beautiful trails here, but actually we're going on a path today. And, you know, kind of keeping into the theme of like the speed workouts on here, right? I think that when you're doing speed workouts, you really want to, you know, assess like, hey, is the race that I'm running hilly or is it flat? Now, Kodiak has a lot of hills. It's going to have about 17,000 feet of gain. So it is very, very hilly. But I always like to say, you know, even in a hilly race, if there are some flat sections where you need to run really hard, don't be afraid to do some flatter workouts. So today we're doing a flatter workout. We'll probably throw in some hill strides in after the sets as well too on this yonder mountain, but we're actually going to a paved path today, and I'm going to do my cool down on the trails, and then later this week I'm going to be doing a hill interval workout to get some hill stuff too. So get a little bit of best of both worlds, little Hannah Montana action, right? Yeah, we're going to make that happen. If you didn't get that reference, right? Like anyone else watch Disney Channel growing up where it's like the best of both worlds. I heard that song like the other day in the store and I was like, whoa, flashback. All right, time to get into the warm up. And here we go. 20 minutes, super easy, nothing to it. And so we're starting the warm up here. 20 minutes, super easy, nothing to it. Just getting the legs ready and getting ready to rip this workout. Let's go. Nice and easy, nothing to it. Remember, the warm-up is supposed to be warmed up. So, obviously the warm-up is supposed to warm you up. But why I say that is because don't push the pace, don't even look at the pace. Nice and easy, that's what we're doing here. So we're making it happen. So, waking up those legs, baby. All right, warm-up done. About 2 miles, super easy, nothing to it. So, we're about to head into the workout portion. Before we do, gotta hit a gel. You know what time it is. Gel 30 over here in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. Carbs are your friend on these speed workout. So I guess people loving these videos when I share my music recommendations. So we're just gonna keep the train rolling here. So again, me and my weird, like picking up, if you saw the last workout where I talk about like the horror theme of Five Nights at Freddy's, that actually got me thinking. Started going down a little bit more of a rabbit hole. Every time I go into races, I like to have like a theme around it. Like last year when I did Javelina, the whole theme around it was, what was it again? Oh, the dark side, like channeling the dark side. Arizona Monster, think a lot about Rocky Balboa, like that was kind of the theme going into it. And then at Tahoe 200, I was like really into this like epic, just kind of like adventure kind of theme. And for Kodiak, I was actually thinking of a theme of like horror. Now why? It's October, Halloween time, but I was thinking the other day, I was like, isn't it like so awesome when you watch a horror movie and you have like the villain and like all the main characters are like trying to like stop the villain. Like they're blasting like him or her with all this crap and everything. And they're like, why won't he die? And I was like, wow, like that'd be so sick to like run an ultramarathon as like one of these horror characters that just like doesn't die. So it's like you get crushed with like mountains and sore legs and everything. Like basically like I want people to look at me out there and be like, how is he not stopping? You know, like, so I've been like channeling this like horror kind of vibe. So where does it go with the music? Really great band, Ice Nine Kills. They like do like their last two most recent albums, the Silver Scream 1 and 2. Basically, like the songs are about horror movies. So like they have like a song about Friday the 13th, and they have a song about Halloween, the movie, and they have a song about like It. And so like I've been listening to a lot of that stuff, and the music's good, by the way. It's like not even cheesy. I mean, maybe a little cheesy, but it's great. I just channel it like thinking that I'm like one of these like horror villains out there. Again, this is weird. You might be like, Joe's a weirdo, but like, hey, it gets me going. Whatever gets you going, go for it. I'm going to take this gel and shut the hell up and start doing this workout. So, anyway. 40 grams of carbs in these beta fuels. It's almost as much as a bagel. Isn't that crazy? Anyways, so workout, remember, 4 sets of 12 minutes at tempo intensity, which is a 6 to 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how hard you're going. About the intensity you can hold for about an hour or so, with 6-minute recoveries in between with a cool down at the end. Let's cue up some of this music. Like I said, so we got some Ice Nine Kills rolling on here. So let's get that rocking and rolling. 3, 2, 1. Gotta always make sure not to go out too fast. Always a big tip that I have is go a little bit less hard than you think, just because you don't want to blow the whole workout out of the water by going too far at the beginning and smoking yourself. So trying to make sure to keep it a little conservative, but still going hard. Whew. All right. Man, that was hard. 6:30. Woo! Man. The good news about very long intervals is you have to do less of them. It's a nice little mind trick. All right, like I don't know why, even though it's objectively way harder, doing something like 4 sets of 12 sounds a lot easier in my brain than doing like 5 sets of 6. Because it's like, I only really got to suffer 4 times, even though it's longer. You got to play tricks on your brain, folks. That's what it's all about, because your brain, man, will do anything to slow you down. It knows your biggest insecurities. It knows your flaws. It knows the best way to convince you to stop. So you have to be a sentinel of your own mind. You need to come up with ways to not let that mind slow you down, to not let it have you go anything less than your very best. And I think the biggest thing of all is you got to realize that that mind, it's not you, right? We can think like, I have these negative thoughts, or I always think these things, but it's like, no, that's not you. Like a thing that opened my eyes to that was, I was at a seminar once, and the person talking was like, how many people here have had the thought, I'm not good enough? And everybody, it was like 20,000 people, all raised their hands. And he goes, that's interesting. He goes, if all of you had that thought, how can that be your thought? And that clicked something in my brain to put the pieces together to say that, like, our thoughts aren't ours. It is literally our survival system, our protective biology that is trying to get us to stop because our brain's trying to keep us safe. And when we run 12 minutes at a pretty high intensity, your brain thinks it's gonna die. And so it's like, hey, stop doing that. But you gotta be like, no, brain, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for looking out for me. Appreciate that a ton. But we're good. This is making us better. This is what I wanna do. And something that I always tell myself, like if I start to feel those things out there, is I literally repeat to myself, I'm like, no, I'm safe. I'm good. Because it kind of like diffuses the brain a little bit. And so, anyways, just some things in case you ever get that urge, that tap on your shoulder, telling you to go a little less hard, telling you to ease up, telling you to stop going when you're at the end of that interval and you got 3 minutes left to go and you don't want to push, you got to keep pushing. When you're in that long run and you got 10 minutes left to go. Don't dog it and go to the car and be like, it's only 10 minutes. Finish that up. Don't let the brain win. Always be the best lawyer against your brain, because your brain is the best lawyer against you. And even though we're strong, though, these next 3 intervals are going to be spicy meatball, remember? So I'm preparing my case against the brain right now. That's what I'm doing. I've also been in Canada for a week, so it's a lot cooler up there. And even though it's a cooler day here in Phoenix, remember what it feels like to run in a little bit hotter temps. 2 minutes left in this little cool down, and then we bash ourselves again. If you're liking the training that you're seeing and you want this kind of training implemented in your life, given to you by someone who's been there and done that and personalized to how you should do it, then we would love to work with you and help to put together your training and give you feedback to help you crush your ultramarathon goals through our one-on-one coaching. So if you want to work with me and my team, you can schedule a free consultation call to see if we'd be a good fit for you. And we'd love to help you, give you proven training backed by science, personalized towards you to help you hit your ultra goals. Go to theeverydayultra.com or the link in the show notes, and we would love to chat with you on a free call. All right, let's get back in the video. All right, second one. All right, interval 2 done. I think it was like 6:42. That one felt a little harder, and then evident by the slower pace. Yeah, we'll see how number 3 goes. You know, I think it's a good time in these recovery periods to check in. And I think checking in, don't get too discouraged if you have the paces a little slower on the second one. I always say, like, take the third one by just feel. As you can probably see in the video, I was looking at my watch a lot. So I'm just gonna take this next one by feel. Turn the pace off and just run by feel, see how that kind of shakes up. And regardless, like, as long as you're hitting the intensity is fine. But like, the slower paces could be a multitude of different factors. And no, they're not excuses, it's data. You know, we'll see how the rest of the workout goes, but anytime you get, I always say, don't try to mid-analyze the workout in the middle of the workout, save it for after. But I wanted to make this video here on the second interval in case, you know, you go through an interval workout and you see that the next one might be slower or you're off your splits a little bit. It's okay. Get the workout done, analyze it after, and all data is good data. So let's keep it going. All right, I think the last one was about the same, 6:45. So stabilize there. Gonna take this last one and go by feel again. I mean, we're always going by feel, but you know, sometimes it can be tempted to look at the pace, see where you're at. But sometimes, you know, if you feel like the pace might be affecting you, like I feel like sometimes my brain can tend to want to, like, if I have like a slower pace than usual, almost like push it. And that could totally destroy the focus of the workout because you might be pushing into another intensity. And your body might be at a slower pace for a multitude of reasons. But whenever you're doing RP workouts, you got to meet your body where it's at. And so if that means turning off the pace for the intervals, it's totally okay. That's what we're doing here. By golly, man, this is a killer workout. Bye. We only got one left. That's it. 12 minutes. Let's go, baby. Let's do it. Cooking, baby. Chef Joe in the kitchen. Golly. Well, you know, I said that it would be hardest tempo workout I've ever done, and that definitely was. Oh man. Yeah, the last split, it was not great, but we got it done for sure. Got it done, and that's what matters the most. And you know, I'm glad we're capturing this workout here. Not to show you the hardness, but like this was by my assessment, if I'm assessing my own performance, it was not a good workout. Now I tried my hardest for sure, but my splits were not there. And I'm glad we're recording this because, you know, I think on YouTube, Instagram, social media, it's so easy to see like people crushing workouts and like, you know, it's easy to post your workouts that are great and that are awesome. But I'm not gonna lie, this one sucked. My split on that last one was bad. My splits were not as great. And so first and foremost, I always say this, like, don't feel bad about a bad workout because two different reasons. Number one, it is normal to have bad workouts. And in fact, if every workout was great, then your workout is not, or your training plan is not hard enough, right? You need to have some bad workouts here and there. Number two, the thing to realize is that if you look at a whole training plan, like I define a really solid training plan. If 30% of your runs are great, or I should say a third of your runs are great, a third of your runs are, you know, check the box, and then a third of your runs are bad. So really only 30%, a little bit more than that, 33% of your runs have to be stellar, 33 have to be okay, and 33 of them, 33%, you know, it's okay for them to be bad. And so this is just one of those 33% that are bad. And so that's the first thing I remember, so I don't get too hard on myself. And the second thing is always like, all right, let's do an analysis. Like, why did this happen? And one thing that I always like encourage athletes to do is like, don't just look at, you know, the running in a vacuum, look at lifestyle stuff. And if I just sit here and think about it real quick, last week I was in Canada. I slept in a tent all week. I do not sleep well in tents, so I didn't get a lot of sleep. I ate camping food and a lot of junk throughout the week because me and my wife were just having a good time and just enjoying it. And then I was on a really long plane flight 2 days ago. And even so, just kind of like adjusting back into the swing of things. So I think all that considered, like, makes sense why maybe today my body is feeling a little bit run down. And here's the most important thing. These aren't excuses. And I'm not just saying this to be like, don't think I'm making excuses, but a lot of people are like, oh, like these are excuses, but it's like, no, this is data, right? This is data. And I think sometimes if you look at a bad workout and you like see that you had all these life stressors in there, it can kind of give you hope because it's like, oh, like if these life stressors cool down, then I could see where I'm really at. And you know, if the life stressors do cool down and then it seems like you're really in that spot before, that's where you look at a broader thing of like your training structure, recovery, all that kind of stuff. But all that being said, it's data, use it to get better. And the most important thing is like, if you did your very best, it counts the most. And I did my very best for sure. I'm tired. So I'm going to go home and drink a copious amount of coffee and recover up and get going with this. So thanks for watching. See you next week. 2 weeks until the taper. 4 weeks until Kodiak. See you soon.